Hey YouTube.com. I'm Jason Ward and you're watching the Making Star Wars show. Hope everybody's having a good, what is it, Tuesday or it's Wednesday? It's Wednesday already. Hump day as they say. So we're already to Wednesday for the week. Yesterday during the show, some Indiana Jones stuff broke and we'll talk a bit about that. And there's a new Leslie Headland interview for Acolyte, and we'll get into that. Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about George Lucas's more like personal films that he was going to make. And, there's been rumors that one of them was going to be sort of like a David Fincher kind of thing, And so I don't know if I could make this work or not. I'm going to try my best, but I got George Lucas on the phone right now. And, I want to talk to him a little bit about how he decided to make his new movie, George Lucas's Baby Fights. And, will we ever see it? I don't know. I don't know if you could even release that in the United States. But, so Mr. Lucas, thanks for coming on the show. I just wanted to, I wanted to know what was your inspiration for this more personal film,
If I treated everybody the way I treat my little 6-week-old baby.
Yeah, you would be fighting all the time, right? Another question is, like, on a scale of, 1 to 10, how good are you at fighting babies? And from what I understand, you're the one who's fighting the babies, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at this?
10.
Cool. What made you want to get into baby fighting? I heard it was after you saw Benjamin Button for the first time?
Sort of antique version of Geeks.
Right, yeah. I get what you mean there, I think. So, what kicked off this fight with your first baby?
Even though your father and your friends may say, why aren't you a lawyer? Because you can be a lawyer. You got accepted to law school. Why you want to be a gardener? Say, well, I like this.
I don't really follow you there, George, Mr. Lucas. When I was driving by your place the other day, I did see what looked to be a baby that was just physically just jacked up.
You don't go over to their house and drive by to see what they're doing.
Yeah. So your baby has its own house. Why would you get your baby its own house?
Endless stupidity.
Is anybody watching these babies? Are you talking to them at all? I mean, do you at least call them?
A simple rule of life. The first rule is no phone calls.
Right. I mean, what made you want to fight babies, dude? You made Star Wars. This is weird.
If you make a mistake, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, if you couldn't beat up a baby, I guess that would be bad. I mean, if you were that bad at like cage fighting, I assume these are cage fights, But I mean, did you lose all the money from Star Wars? What made you have to go down this route? I mean, it seems desperate.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to make a living.
Yeah, but you're okay, right? I mean, you're fine, right? You don't. I mean, if you need a friend, I'm here. You need a couch to crash on.
How did I end up where I am?
Yeah, I mean, you sold Star Wars, and then, I mean, from what I heard on YouTube.com, you just regretted it the whole time, and it's been a constant war for you. But so let's try and change this. I mean, let's talk about George Lucas's baby fights a little bit more. Like, is it safe? Have you been okay?
Was almost killed, and as a result of that, sort of sat in a hospital for a long time thinking about my place in the world.
Yeah. Is that why you kind of backed off of helping out with Star Wars? I mean, is that the truth, George? And just let me know.
I was broke.
Right. But these
I'm
babies...
70.
Yeah, you're 70.
I don't know whether I'll be here when I'm 80.
Yeah, dude, but these babies are like 6 months old, So when you're like driving down the street and you see like a bunch of babies just like in front of a park, like what gets in your mind? Like what goes through your head when you see that now?
If I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble.
Yeah, and you like it though, right? You like.
Yeah, it's like drugs.
Wow. And what's different about baby fights than fighting than Star Wars? What's different about fighting babies than making a Star Wars movie?
It's not about spaceships.
Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. I don't know, George. George, are you drinking?
Went to
George? George? Are you okay? Wait, I can see on the video here you're picking up some children. You're picking up babies now. Why?
Follow these instructions. Move it to the right, move it to the left. Move it up, move it down.
Right.
Follow these instructions.
Okay.
Move it to the right, move it to the left. Move it up, move it down.
Okay.
But it's time for me to move on.
So you're going to close down the interview because it got too close to home, maybe? I mean, what did the babies ever do to you, man?
There'll be no artists in this family. Again, it's a biological response. Put on the pleasure pedal and it's great.
You're a weird dude, Mr. Lucas. Just before we wrap it up, any chance you're going to work with John Williams again?
Put a soundtrack to it.
Okay. That seems fair. I mean, what drove you to this?
Slavers that take these things and that's the word of man.
That's the word of. All right, I'm going to end this here. This is stupid.
You're opening the wound again. You're gonna have to pay for it.
You know what? I'm hanging up on him. Sorry, guys. That was stupid. I don't know why I thought we could have George Lucas on this show in 2021. I mean, I'm an idiot. Anyways, so there was a rumor that Indiana Jones was. It was there. I just glossed over it too fast. Luke says I was waiting for the white slavers remark, or maybe he heard it. Anyways, yesterday the Sun broke that Indiana Jones was going to be slowing down by about 3 months because of the Harrison Ford shoulder injury. So that wasn't good, right? I mean, I don't know. It's like yesterday somebody asked me, they said, any news on Indy? And I was just like, I'm going to tell you what I think, not what I know. And I knew that the production was still going, and so I didn't think it was going to be slowed down at all. So I'm not sure how accurate the reporting on this stuff necessarily is. Not calling it inaccurate, but for what it's worth, somebody tweeted to Mangold, "Trouble is my biz," said, "Hang in there, James. Work on script. It'll be okay." And Mangold says, "We're good. Still shooting, but thanks." So, and I believe that is 100% true. There's no reason to doubt Mangold on that one. So, they're still shooting. So my guess is that they're going to shoot around as much of it as they can. My guess is that they will do a lot of the same kind of shots that we got in Temple of Doom. Because in Temple of Doom, Harrison Ford hurt his back really, really bad. It was real jacked up. So most of the action scenes are done by the stuntman, and the close-ups are Ford. So we're probably going to see something like that on this movie to some extent. And maybe we were going to see that to an extent anyways. I think the problem becomes, how do you handle when you're filming at a castle and you have that like etched out and you're not done. I mean, and that's just conjecture on my part. I have no idea how that's all going to work out. The early stuff, the early parts of the film apparently are going to be a lot of CGI. So it appeared that what's his name, Toby and Ford both have those tracking dots on their face. So I have to assume they were going to be de-aging Ford and Toby for that sequence. And if they're de-aging both of them, I assume that maybe they both come back into play. Well, obviously Ford comes back into play. but that Toby does too, because unless they just want to make him look young, and maybe they want to make him look young for consistency. I mean, there's always that weird like uncanny valley kind of issue, and maybe if they de-age them both, then it looks more natural and believable as opposed to having a de-aged person next to a standard non-de-aged person. But that's conjecture on my part. I don't know if they would go that way. I don't really see if he doesn't come back. If Toby doesn't come back, why couldn't he just be his age? Unless that was the reason. But yeah. So, I'm not sure what to make of the Indy situation. I don't think it's as dire as people on YouTube.com are making it sound in the little sampling that I've seen. I haven't heard of anybody on the crew getting the see in 3 months, kind of slips or whatever you want to call it. I haven't heard of any of that kind of stuff yet. And so my guess is that they're just going to keep on trucking. Frank Marshall tweeted out, Le Doctor, business as usual today while we continue to celebrate England's historic win over Germany. Indiana Jones 5. So, and it's a Pinewood Studios Eastgate picture. So it looks like, yeah. So if you're catching up, hey Reskov, just tune in. What's going on with Indy? Basically, the rumor is the Sun was reported it's being delayed. Ford's going to be out for 3 months, but both Frank Marshall and Mangold, the most masculine movie director of our time, with that name, they say we're still shooting. So that's a good sign. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, if maybe this is speculation on my part, but maybe it's going to be a situation where you have Ford is technically like out of commission for 3 months, right? Like maybe now he's getting the surgery and then you have like a recovery time and so on, right? Well, there's a good chance that they may be able to film around it for a month. He gets the surgery. Maybe he's going to be able to walk. Maybe he will be able to read lines. Maybe he won't be able to do any action stuff for 3 months. That's just me hoping for the best, obviously. And obviously I don't want to see Harrison Ford hurt. We don't want to in 20 years learn that Ford spent the rest of his life in agony to give us one last Indy film. While I would appreciate it. And he is a badass, and I do love the guy for the art and the physical pain he's gone through in making these movies that we adore so much. But, you don't want anybody to suffer just so we could get a movie a little bit quicker. And if the movie is delayed until Christmas, so be it. I mean, that would be fine with me. I would love to have it 1 year from now, like next July, to be going and seeing an Indiana Jones film. But if it doesn't happen, I'm okay with that as long as it happens. And this is going to be the last Harrison Ford one. I mean, realistically, at his age, the fact that it's even happening is amazing. The fact that he looks great is amazing. And the fact that technology has gotten to the stage where they can de-age him to give us a Nazi-era Indiana Jones is amazing. So I have no problem with just waiting a little bit longer for it if we have to, but hopefully we don't, I mean, that'd be terrible. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Chandler. Oh yeah, for what it's worth, you guys, I forgot to put it at the top of the show because I found these George Lucas sound files I collected a while ago like an idiot. We have channel memberships open now. So if you want to support the channel, so that way we could continue to do as many as I've been doing with by all means, if you have the means, support the channel. I'll be doing some kind of exclusive content for channel members. I don't know what that's going to be, and I'm kind of letting that start to fill up so we could figure it out. I don't want to go and say we're going to play the Star Wars role-playing game in a video and it's going to be ridiculous. And then everyone's like, I don't really want to do that. or But right now, the way where my head's at with it is that we will start to maybe have, like, if there's a discussion that channel members want to have, we'll make sure to have it every single time, or we will get to every channel member's like discussion topic that matters, and that's one way of doing it, because I want this to be different than a podcast. Excuse me. I want this to be different than a podcast in the sense that, like, a podcast, I would make it, put it out. There's such a delay. Like, honestly, by the time I would put my podcast out, I wouldn't even know what I said anymore. It was just like, oh, that was days ago. So much has happened, in the news cycle. It's like, what was that about again? What did I say? And so with this kind of format, I like that I have this instant connection to you guys, and that has been the most fun part about this. And one of the first channel members that we've had was Darth Del Rio, and Darth Del Rio asked, I have a question for the Making Star Wars YouTube show. Do you think we could see other Jedi besides Kenobi and the Inquisitors in the Kenobi show? Maybe set up scenes for Inquisitors hunting down other Jedi to establish them as badass? That would be cool. That would be cool. I mean, the thing about the Kenobi show is that it's limited, right? It's not like, I don't expect there to be a lot of filler. It's going to take place around 6 episodes was what I had heard initially. And I don't know if that changed, because originally it was going to be a film. The film was a good script. I heard it was the best script they ever wrote. From somebody, I think, who's more of like a Mandalorian side of the Star. If there was a split, I don't think there is, but if you want to look at it in those terms, they were more of a Mandalorian person than a sequel trilogy person. They said it was the best script that they had ever read, or that was ever written for the Disney era of Star Wars. And so you have that, and it was 6 episodes. It was initially, I believe, the 3 acts cut into 2 episodes each, so it's going to be 6 episodes. But since then, there was a massive rewrite that happened, and I don't know if it was expanded in that. I don't know if it was edited down, if it was made smaller. I'm not sure. So I could only talk about one part of the production on that, and I can't say for certain if it carries over. I think it should. I'm trying not to blind you guys with this light over here, and so I'm trying to get resituated here a little bit. I was trying to, I had George Lucas on today, so I had to get some weird space use down. Anyways, yeah, so setting up those other people, that could be cool. I mean, I think it would be neat if Kenobi knows who these people were. That's always one of the things about the Kenobi fights in Star Wars. Besides, see, I don't even know if I agree with this, but the Kenobi fights are always personal. And people could say the Maul one wasn't, but it was the start of something personal, for what it's worth. And the death of Qui-Gon makes that fight still very personal for him by the end of it. It begins as a skirmish with an unknown attacker, and then it ends with, this guy's killed my dad, essentially. And so it does get personal. But as we know with Star Wars fans, it doesn't work so well for them if the personal side isn't already there, or when it's put there later. I think it gets added value. Like the Phantom Menace duel has been enhanced by Star Wars Rebels, and it's been enhanced by this Maul Kenobi feud that fans love, and it's been explored in all these various mediums. So with that said, we are going to kind of have a retelling of that Maul fight if there is no personal connection between Kenobi and these Inquisitors. If all of these Jedi, ex-Jedi, were essentially trained by Yoda, and as we know, Kenobi and Yoda were tight homies. So there's a good chance that even though there was 1,000 people in that order, and that's the other thing about stuff, is there's I don't know how many Jedi there's supposed to be in canon now, but there were supposed to be thousands, but it didn't sound like there was, that many. I mean, if you think about it, like I went to a high school of 3,000 people, and you kind of know of most people, not necessarily, not to say you knew everyone, but you could usually recognize a lot of people. And maybe that's a sweeping generalization and not accurate at all. But I kind of think that for the most part, when you have a world of wizards with special magic powers, people stand out a bit more in that scenario. So there's a good chance that they do know each other, I think. And yeah, that could be interesting. And it could be interesting if Kenobi, tries to lure them back to the good side. I mean, I don't think this is the story, for the record. I'm speculating. But, it would be interesting if that was part of it, was Kenobi trying to convert Inquisitors back to the good side so that way the Jedi had a fighting chance. But and if that fails in some way or has mixed results, could be an interesting kind of reason for why Luke becomes what he becomes to them too. So Luke Winchester says, I'm here from the start for the first time, and I'm treated to dinner and a show. Outstanding interwebs. Thanks, Luke. It's like poetry, it rhymes. It really was. I mean, that's just George for you. First he's making a show about war for children who then grow up to be giant babies, and he fights babies now. Jordan says he loves wars, whether it's space or with babies. Greetings, Mr. Fernandez. Good to see you. Luke went to. I was waiting for the White Sabers. Okay, yeah, we got that one in. Always got to get that one in. Can you ask who he would cast as himself for the baby for the baby fighter? Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I the only thing that I know is, okay. Well, George, what would you say, George?
It's time for me to move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's not making the movie now. I think we must have talked him out of it. Thank God. Love these end of work day hangs. Me too, James. It's a good time. It's always fun hanging out with you guys on here, and just talking about the day's news. And as we know, I wish I had like this cool setup with like these extra big monitors so I could just clearly just see the chat as it unfolded. But on my MacBook Pro, it does not work well for this interface. So Luke says, old dude takes longer to heal than young dude would. It's not really news, is it? No, not necessarily. I mean, it becomes news or historically significant to the production of Indiana Jones 5 if it is delayed in some way, or the fact that it's having to be made under the circumstances that it is. There's a theory that people have, and I don't know if I subscribe to it, but like people will say your limitations are what make you, or what make great art within this like little box. And so the question I think arises is, does this hurdle that's come up make a better Mangold indie film in the end? Does it hurt it in the end? And we won't know until we see the movie. Like, how is the movie? If the movie's fantastic, then we could say, well, there you go. There's some evidence for these hurdles helping. At the same time, like, you'll hear that about the prequels. Like, George Lucas didn't have that much in his way. There was all yes men, nobody to tell him no. And then the movie comes out as it is because he's just able to do whatever he wants without being challenged. I don't necessarily agree with that idea. I'm not saying that it's that there isn't some truth to it, but I think that that thesis is incorrect in the sense that had George Lucas set out to make a different movie and then made that movie, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, then you could use that against him. But George Lucas set out to make that, and they made that, and that's what it was. And that, I think, that logic says he was trying to make the original trilogy verbatim, and he made Phantom Menace. And I just don't see the evidence for that myself. That's why I don't necessarily agree with that perspective. And I would also say, if you want to take it outside of art, my favorite band of all time is Queen. And as Queen got the cuffs off, so to speak, and had unlimited studio time to do whatever they wanted, they made Bohemian Rhapsody. They didn't make Bohemian Rhapsody on Queen 1, and then by innuendo were making, it didn't work that way. So, but I mean, it's an interesting theory and it's an interesting thought exercise, and maybe it's true of certain artists and not others. I don't know, but it is fascinating because you do hear this kind of tossed around as truth about George Lucas and like where he's coming from or where he was coming from with his art. And I don't think I agree. Hey Jordan, de-aging Harrison Ford so he can be involved in George Lucas's Baby Fighter takes some hubris. That is possible. I mean, that could be why he's so under wraps, and that could be why he's in such a bad mood today, I mean, he probably wanted to start shooting on Baby Fighter, and now Indy's being delayed by 3 months, and it's pushing his production back. Just a guess, though. But I think you're onto something. Luke Winchester. Luke. On board with that speculation. Surely they will have allowed for this kind of shit after Ford's fight with the door on Star Wars. Yeah. And that I thought about that too, Like I don't think they would ever admit it because, I mean, I don't think it's bad that George Lucas is 78 and making Indiana Jones. I don't. A lot of people will be kind of arrogant or flippant about it. They'll say things like, "Oh, of course he got hurt. He's 80 years old," and it's like, yeah, but I don't know. I kind of think that if he was 60 or if he was 80, like he would have probably got hurt doing what he was doing. And he's been hurt on these movies when he was young. So I don't know if age plays into it, but age definitely plays into recovery time. That goes without saying. And I love everything Indy, though. Like, I love the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. It's a bit grating at times, but at the same time, some of it is very good. You really do have to work for it. It's challenging to get into it at times, but it's worth it ultimately, I think, if you're a huge Indiana Jones fan. And so I like the fact that we had these bookends with Indy, and he looked all old when he was supposed to be about this age, getting close to it. And Harrison Ford looks better than the dude who played old Indy by far. Like, it's crazy. The bookends have been cut when they used to, when they aired on ABC, they were one episode and they had these bookends, and it would be like, "Oh, it's like Forrest Gump, he's on like the park bench and he's like, 'Let me tell you a story about the time,' and then he starts telling a story." Okay. And one episode Harrison Ford came back and he had the beard, and it was for the Chicago Blues episode. Pretty good one too. But that said, they cut those out and they edited them into little mini movies. They made episodes that connected, and so you have like basically about a 1 hour long movie kind of. And so with that in mind, I like that we're getting Indy's whole life, like essentially, and Ford is doing more than half of it, which is fascinating in a weird way. Sorry, I haven't been present the last couple of shows. I've been busy, but thank you for your insight and reporting. Hey, thanks, Kenneth. I mean, as long as these are entertaining to you and you're having fun and you're not busy, dude, I'm glad that you're here. So show up when you can, and always feel free, to send in a question or whatever. If you can't be here and you have one that you want us to talk about that you can watch later, I don't mind doing that. And yeah. Oh man, what is Toby's name? Indiana. I'm gonna look it up right now because I am drawing a blank on his last name. Indiana Jones 5. Toby Jones. That should be easy to remember, Jason. His last name is literally the same last name as the main character. Toby Jones. So, yeah. So, Toby who? Toby Jones. Any indications that Cobb Vanth will be in Book of Boba Fett? He is on Tatooine after all. Yeah, it's totally possible. And it's really hard to say because when Book of Boba started, we thought Mando was still filming at first. And then Book of Boba took like a really long time, and it was during the pandemic, so it just made that one really. I hate to put it in those terms, but it benefits from that scenario. Our civilization was sort of shut down for the most part. It was not easy to, go check out the set and stuff either. Not that I would have seen him, to be clear. I doubt you would have noticed. But that said, yeah, people working from home and stuff like that makes it a little bit harder to have crosstalk. You know what I mean? It's weird time. Definitely a weird time. Mark Hamilton says, young Kanan cameo in live action would be sweet. Yeah, that would be. I wouldn't mind if we saw something like that. At the same time, like Kanan, that connection, and I don't know, because of Kanan's path, like Kenobi intersecting with Kenobi should put him on the path, and it doesn't. So it would ultimately be a fruitless encounter unless they were to do it in some very clever way. At the same time, like, I wouldn't mind seeing live action Kanan in some way. I think it would be cool. I think that's the thing about Star Wars Rebels, is that I'm critical of Rebels. Like, I truly am. Sometimes I think I'm even unfair to Rebels, because it's like when you really believe in something and then you see it hitting those marks and then you see it not, for who God knows why at times, it's frustrating to me. But the world building in Rebels and the characters in Rebels were solid. The actors were solid. It would just be those times when they veered off the path to make a really kids cartoon at times. And I think that at times there were competing visions, and I wonder why, Greg Weisman wasn't involved more. And was Greg Weisman the one who was making it a kiddie show, or was he making it the grown-up show? Like, what happened there? I always wondered about that. Hey, Ant-Man, how's it going? Hey, Jason, just tuned in hoping I didn't miss the Acolyte conversation. We haven't got to that yet. We're going to get to that next. So you're cool. Luke says, de-aged Ahsoka in flashback scene in the Kenobi show, maybe. Ooh, that could be cool. I mean, that would be if they did do a Clone Wars flashback. I hadn't thought about that, Luke. I think that's a really good point. That would be a great opportunity to introduce the live action crowd to Ahsoka even further. Because, like, when you see her in Mando, she could have been any Jedi. And that's fine. It's not bad. But it wasn't like you saw that and you were like, oh, this was Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. She fought in the Clone Wars with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and here's why she's important. So if these shows are going to talk to each other, that would be it. I mean, that would be a good kind of, and a moment that would send, I think, the animation fans just into, overdrive with excitement. And then you'd have those people who, just like hear like fun facts and be like, I'm a Star Wars fan, I know fun facts. And it would work for them too. I'm not dogging it, but we can't deny that it's not a thing. People who just kind of regurgitate like things and like, I don't know how you put it. I don't really care, I guess. Canada says, I'm most excited to hear the Acolyte draws inspiration from the Phantom Menace. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. And I'm going to talk a little bit, if I don't forget, about why that's important. I think it goes back to the Gary Whitta thesis. And that's my thesis of Gary Whitta didn't like the prequels. That's not bad. It wasn't bad for Rogue One. And the fact that she loves Star Wars isn't bad for Star Wars either. But the fact that they are taking both of these things into account might make for some of the strongest Star Wars, ultimately. Phantom Menace is my favorite prequel. I love Phantom Menace. I mean, I love them all. So, but my favorite is Revenge of the Sith. That one is just so freaking good for me. And it's like, it's sort of like a montage of everything I wanted the prequels to be in one movie. And that makes it easy to watch, like to get all of it, in the one film. with all of the exposition having been handled by the first two. And I love the prequel trilogy. If I had to criticize the prequel trilogy, it was simply introducing Jar Jar and the Phantom Menace, building it up. I actually really do love Jar Jar Binks. I really do think that Jar Jar is a fun character. Could he have been edited down maybe more tastefully? Sure. Was it overdone in a way that broke the movie? I don't think so. But ultimately, what lets me down in retrospect is pulling back on Jar Jar from the sequels. And George Lucas, in my opinion, maybe one of the only times I felt like he was sort of a coward with his characters. And I think there was just a lot on the line, and he had to do it. Star Wars, he owned everything. So if it flopped, it was on him. And the livelihood of his employees and his company. So I have sympathy for why he made his choices. At the same time, there's so much investment into Jar Jar Binks, and then very little payoff. And then they scapegoat him, and then they don't really do much with him in the third one. Which, saving Luke and Leia or something like that, being responsible for why the Jedi Order even existed, like that would have been the ultimate sort of revenge, in that they brought this Palpatine essentially brought this fool into the fold, and then the fool was what ended up saving him. And maybe he wasn't so dumb. Maybe he started to wise up by the end. And they didn't do it. They didn't do anything like that. And same kind of criticism with Rose in the sequel trilogy is that we had a big investment in her and Finn's relationship in The Last Jedi, and then the last film does nothing with it. And that is the thing I hope that future trilogies learn when they make them, is that do not introduce characters for no reason just because you could do something with them elsewhere because you decided you didn't know what to do with them in the first place. That's a huge mistake. And it wastes time, and it makes those parts of the overall trilogy, when you watch it as a trilogy, meander when they shouldn't. And ultimately, I think Jar Jar and Rose were good characters, and they deserved better. I hope we see more on screen. There were credible rumors of Jar Jar with a beard coming from places that, unless it was one of those fake leaks from somewhere internally, but Ahmed Best has said he's not involved. But Ahmed Best has had a closer tie to the productions more recently. So, kind of like, are we going to see Jar Jar? I don't know. I hope we do, though. Espika Bachi scooped that The Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams 3 to 4 does exist. My friend Scooper Mikey Sutton let it slip. We will eventually get it on Disney+. I do not want... I don't know who that is. And I don't want to get into a nerd fight about anything. I don't want to debunk anybody or anything like that. I'm not interested. But if that is the word going around, if that does happen, then I would flip the story around and saying that the idea of a JJ cut is bullshit. It is literally them second-guessing themselves and leaning into an opportunity to fix something that they weren't happy with, if that's the case. Because the movie that we did get was the JJ cut. The choices that were made were JJ's choices ultimately. And I don't mean to be like a prick about it, but when you look at what I was releasing at the time, I had very solid sources that were very, very close, who were frustrated with JJ himself at times for his choices. So that's why I don't believe that angle, for what it's worth. Yeah, unless that was a Super Shadow joke. Wasn't his name something like that? I can't remember now. Can you guys hear me? Somebody just said no audio. But anyways, yeah, I appear to have audio on my end, it looks like anyways. I hope that's okay. So, yeah, what is this about an extended cut? I don't think that's real, personally. And if they do an alternate cut, it's, like I said, that's when I would get conspiratorial for maybe the first time. Lopez says, since we've heard that Inquisitors would be on the Kenobi, I've been thinking maybe Cal Kestis could maybe show up. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have that story is like 5 years after, or is it right after? I can't remember. It's like right after. It's been a little bit of time. He looks like he's a little bit older. I think it's 5. I want to say it's 5 years, but I don't know if I'm getting that wrong. But yeah, I like that character too. My kid really connects with Cal, like a lot from that game, and it's kind of weird. Like I'm somebody who like I think I don't value video games like I should. Like Red Dead Redemption is fantastic, and I heard somebody like kind of waxing poetical about that story the other day, and I was like, yeah, it's really good. That's such a good. And then I was like, well, do I not respect video game characters how I should? And I think it just has to do with years of hearing like Kyle Katarn's gonna be in the prequels, you guys. Kyle Katarn's gonna he's gonna be the new TV show, and it was like never gonna happen. Nobody cared about Kyle Katarn at the time. Maybe he'll come in the future because we still remember who he is, which I think says a lot. But Cal, I think Cal is cool, so I would like to see him show up. There is no extended cut. JJ's got his limit cut. So many people like Jason and Bespin both have said it many times. Yeah, I mean, and I think Bespin, not to put words in his mouth, would totally back me up on this. If that ever happens, like I said, that is them trying to do a mulligan, a do-over, a special edition, trying to recapitalize on things. But I don't believe that they will. I don't think that they can now, for instance, because then, like, check it out. So there were things that they couldn't make up their mind on, right? Is Palpatine a clone? Is it just supernatural? Is he every Sith? Is this ultimately not Palpatine, but the power of the Sith culminating in the presence of Palpatine? There's all these rando ideas that were being floated around. And when you throw that down together, you end up with, I think the safest bet is to play with ambiguity. Then you have books that come out, novelizations. Oh, it's not really Palpatine's. We say it's Palpatine's granddaughter in the movie, but it's really Palpatine's granddaughter by a clone. It's convoluted. It's confusing. So that would mean that if they did what else they could do or might want to do, wanted to do, then it would then step on all of the printed materials that they've done in the last year, damaging the publishing pretty in a huge way. I mean, at that point, people would be like, I don't believe any of that. I don't take any of this seriously because canon is so valued in the fan community. And what would the trade-off be? Would it make that much more money? Is there that big of a demand for, this fan version of it? Ben Solo never came back to life, and at the end was living on a farm with her, and they were making scrambled eggs. That never happened. In fact, the original ending of the film was all of the main heroes showing up at the farm and bearing the saber, and all of them looking out towards the twin suns of Tatooine at the end. And the idea was, maybe they're all going to become Jedi, but the future, it's there. Star Wars continues. This saga is over, but there's more. Well, then it started shifting around, and it got changed to just doing it with just Rey. And those were the only two endings that were shot for the film, to the best of my knowledge. And it would be weird if there were more that I didn't know about. Not saying it's not possible. Anything is possible. I never want to present myself as being the end-all, be-all, know-all, because I don't. But I do know what I know from my sources that I trust and believe wholeheartedly. And they've never steered me wrong in a huge way, and never on purpose. And they've never hidden things. For the most part, most of the cutscenes that have ever been surfaced, I have actually scooped before they were even cutscenes. And there were a few of those in this movie, or in alterations and changes, but I really don't believe it. I wouldn't mind if there was a way that I like Episode 9, but if there was a way to make it better, hell, my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith. If there was a way to make it better, I would be for it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to fight it, and I wouldn't, and I don't want to step on somebody else's scoop and like deny it or whatever. But if you're asking my opinion, that is inaccurate. And if it has any accuracy to it, it's because they have decided to special edition it, and it's not a true JJ cut. It would be a JJ recut. So, Mr. Beanaland says, "Are you curious about the nature of Colin's departure from 9? I ask because the Tross and Mendo Art of Star Wars books are interesting in terms of the late 17 launch timelines. Possible JJ and Fav synergy. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but, you know, and I don't know what's exactly, like, I've never been able to, my few interactions with Favreau, with Colin were like, oh, him saying, like, that wasn't in my script. And that sucked, man, because I read every script for 9. And the way that I got to read them and the parts I got to read from them was depicted in this certain light. And so when I actually read in the first one, I thought the first one was actually the Colin one, and it wasn't. And so he was like, that's not mine. But in the first one, that wasn't used. The first one post Colin, it was actually like, it was flipped around on me. The idea was that Rey was the handmaiden of Leia's daughter and grew up in the house. And that's why you had those moments like where, you know, in Force Awakens where, like in the novel where he's like, it's you or whatever. And it was like, that was what it was going to be. Truly like the idea better. I thought it, but it was weird. They end battle in that one. The writer's name is blanking on me right now. I'm so sorry, you guys. I need to make notes before a show if I know what I'm going to talk about. I didn't know I was going to talk about this though. But it ended in the Solo family house, and Rey confronts him there, and they both kind of confront their past, and they have this lightsaber duel. And I thought it was kind of fascinating. It could have been bad, but it was definitely. But I will be completely honest with you, of those scripts, and I think this is why I'm talking about this, is I read various drafts of Episode 9, and that movie is the movie that Abrams wanted to make. There was no huge difference. There was nothing amazingly different. And dialogue changed, dialogue was punched up, you know, there were these, and in my opinion, I'm no script doctor or script genius for that matter. I've read many scripts. I think it needed another pass. That's just me. Nolan shares his opinion. I'm truly not up on it, so I really don't know. Joshua says, The Last Crusade is my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Yeah, film. Me too. Me too. That's the one where I had realized Star Wars was kind of like not coming back, and I was really into Lucasfilm, and George Lucas was sort of this amazing pioneer. You know, I couldn't believe what this guy had done. So I followed everything from Lucasfilm. I saw Tucker, A Man in His Dream, in the theater because I was part of the Lucasfilm fan club, you know, as a kid. Not a good sell, Lucasfilm. But you got your ticket out of me. But that was the first one where I was like super excited for an Indiana Jones movie. I had seen the other ones by that time, but I didn't really, I was just like, wow, this is interesting. And I was kind of putting it all together. And Last Crusade was like the one where I was excited for a movie. It was built up in the fan club magazine. And it you know, had a big push, and it came out, and it was great, and it connected with me. And it's just the most fun Indiana Jones movie. It's not dark in any way, really. And yeah, I could watch it all day. And obviously, Sean Connery is a genius. He's a little bit of a maniac in real life, but genius actor. and their chemistry was just, that's like lightning in a bottle. You couldn't get that again if you tried. I hope the new one has some amazing chemistry, but man, that is just amazing. Jordan says, we have never seen any deleted scenes from The Rise of Skywalker. Do you think it will ever be released? Yeah, I mean, I think like eventually, yes, eventually for sure. But I don't know if it's slated. And in my opinion, they want to let the dust settle. They want the movie to be assessed, to age, how it's going to age. I don't see like a 3D release coming for it. That seems to have pretty much been shelved. And if they did like a 3D release of it, then that would be like, oh, you need some way to incentivize it. But right now, I don't think it's like politically, if you will, in their best interest to release the cutscenes and to start second guessing those choices that were changed, right? I mean, and that one, like the other two films, I mean, I think are very solid films just by themselves. You know what I mean? And I don't know if 9 is the most solid film. So I don't know if the confidence is there. That's just my opinion, though. They may feel completely different. So, yeah. What else we got? Mikey Sutton. Yikes. Yeah, that was his name. You know, and I talked about it before because as a teenager, I used to, when Super Shadow started, like it was kind of a serious blog. And then it became like, he was kind of almost doing what this is in a way, like write in your theories and your questions, and I'll cover it. But then it started to become kind of jokey, and it moved into satire, and people didn't catch on. You know, it's almost like if, you know, and he started saying like he knew George Lucas and stuff. It was like the beginning of this episode almost, and it was like clearly a joke, but people took it seriously. So in certain ways, I think Super Shadow is I feel bad for him. On the other hand, it sounded like he was taking money from people who would believe those lies, on the gullible. And on one hand, you're like the jerk in you is just like, well, what do they expect? But on the other hand, it's like, well, that's not cool, you know. I think Mr. Lopez says, I think Cal would be on Braca on that age. But anyways, I don't know. Don't really know how old Luke would be either in the show. Yeah, Luke's probably like around 10. If it's 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, so he's about 10 years old. And 9 or 10. And, you know, they always play with the Luke age, you know, in A New Hope. He's somewhere between 18 and 20. And I know they have a final age on that. And, you know, Leia was supposed to be 16 in A New Hope, and he was supposed to be 20. And then they ended up making them twins, so now they're both around 18 probably. But yeah. And then thank you, Jordan. Jordan just became a channel member. Just a bit of support for the show. Keep it up. Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot, dude. You know, any support for the channel is appreciated. Not required. No, you know, no pressure, but I do appreciate it. And it means a lot. So thank you so much. Florida Frog says, it would be great if Starkiller was the mystery Inquisitor. Maybe it would be introduced into canon, and they would have to scale its power back a bit, but it would line up with the Force Unleashed 3 rumor. Yeah, you know, I was thinking about Starkiller the other day because my son played the Force Unleashed 1 and 2 when they became free for Xbox Live subscribers, and I owned it. He could have played it the whole time, but that's when he got it, I believe. I think that's how it worked. And he loves it. Like, he loves the whole idea of it. My take on my unique version of it is, number one, is he just becomes like the Hulk, right? If he could do anything, if he could lift anything, and it's just like, it's crazy, then you have an overpowered character, a Mary Sue, if you will. Well, how do you deal with that? I would treat him like the Hulk. You know? I would give him like, his mind had been messed up, and he taps into the Force, and it's just like this torrent of rage, and he can't help it. Maybe at times he could control it, but there's no focus to it, and like, you know, take it in a way so you can do these amazing things, but not have it be common, not have it be normal, and not have it where there's no story to tell because he cannot be defeated. You know, Like, I would like to see them do something like that with him, and I would like to see him come back. What's the actor's name? He voices Maul now. I'm drawing a blank. My recall on names is jacked up today. Sorry, guys. Don't know why. But I think he's cool. I think he's a good actor. I think he's a good voice actor. And I wouldn't mind seeing him as Starkiller. I think that would be really fun. Ant-Man says, "Oh shit, Super Shadow reference. Laugh out loud. Mickey Subtle. Man, I used to go to that site every day when the prequels were being made. His fake Lucas interviews were hilarious." Yeah, and I thought so too. I mean, I totally like lost interest when it moved to satire. It was super clear to me, but that's the thing about the internet, you know, is that like subtlety, which is kind of funny with his last name, is lost. Satire, you know, you make a joke, you never know who's going to get your joke, who's going to take it seriously, who's going to take a joke way too, an inappropriate joke into a place where they're outraged, and it's just like, oh, internet. But, you know, if he did take anybody for their money, then I do feel extraordinarily bad for them, especially if they were kids. But, oh, you know, I just remembered something. So there was somebody contacted me from one of the big websites later on, and they were telling me this horrible story actually about him. That's bad if it's true. I don't know why it wouldn't be true, but supposedly there was a child dying of cancer, and they made a Star Wars site together, the uncle, I think, who wrote for one of those sites, and they made their own, and the child sent the site to Subtle, or Mickey Subtle, however you say it, and said, "Hey, do you like my Star Wars site?" And he wrote back something like, "It's garbage, kid. You know, stick to Super Shadows, whatever." And they were livid with it, and that was when they were like really trying to find out who he was. And I had some stuff that was written on the site, like some like theories from I actually wrote my theories in high school for writing class, and then I went and typed them out and sent them in because I was a big nerd. But yeah, so that's I think when I was like, oh, this guy's not cool. Lord Exor, do you know at what point during filming, editing, they changed their mind on Palpatine knowing about the dyad and wanting to drain its power to just wanting to possess Rey? Yeah, well, you know, I don't want to misspeak here, but if you look at my videos that I made at the time where I actually like put that out, I actually say it on a date and then I do a correction, and it's basically right in between those two videos, which is not very far apart. The end, I remember like the line would be in the edit and then taken out. It would kind of ping pong back and forth in that film. So yeah, it was really late. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of back and forth on that kind of stuff. A lot of I think to me it says insecurity, being unsure. I don't blame him. I don't know. Like, see the problem I think that I have with the movie that I do love is when I don't consider Palpatine's coming back, I like it. When I don't think about it, I like the actual movie. But the idea of Palpatine coming back doesn't actually work. And so I am like, literally, it's like when you're dating somebody and you know they're not for you, but they have all of these other things that you like, but you know it's not going to work out. That's how it feels. That's how my relationship to that movie is. It's like, you're beautiful. There's a lot going on. A lot that I like. But there's this thing I can't get over, and I don't know if it'll ever work for me. Maybe the worst analogy, but that's how I feel about it. Okay, yeah. Why don't we go and take Kieran's, Mr. Grant's suggestion. What is the Acolyte going to add to the Star Wars universe? So let's go over to this. How do I pull a tab out on this browser? I'm having to use a different browser than I usually use, but there I go. I did it through brute force. Okay. So the wrap did an interview with Leslie Headland, who spells Leslie very interesting. Sounds very fancy and posh to me. Says that Leslie Headland is one of the several creators working on their own live-action series for Disney Plus's expanding small-screen Star Wars universe. And reiterates the Acolyte is set to take place in the final days of the High Republic era, a period roughly 200 years before the events of George Lucas's 1999 Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So right there, just kind of brings open a big question for me. And that's like, the publishing that we've been reading is roughly 200 years before, right? Like the event that happens and stuff. Well, is this like 150 years after? Has all of that happened in the distant past of this golden age? Or is this like, is there this High Republic era that's the golden age of the Jedi, and then it ends, and then we have 150 years of falling down into the spiral of the Phantom Menace Senate. Hard to say. There's a quote. What I can say is the reason it did appeal to me personally is that I was 18 when the Phantom Menace came out. So was I. And I was a very, very big Star Wars fan. I remain a big Star Wars fan, but at that particular time, right after the re-release of the fact that I was in high school, it just kind of all coincided at a time when I was discovering who I was sexually. I was discovering who I was artistically. I was kind of realizing what I wanted to do with my life. Headland, who was also the co-creator and showrunner of Netflix's Russian Doll Told the Rap. And then this big, huge movie event, cultural event happened that was The Phantom Menace. So yeah, I could completely relate to everything that she's talking about in this thing. I'm with the same age, and that was Phantom Menace, man. I don't know if anything will ever be as big as that was. Even episode 7, which was huge, still didn't have that Phantom Menace mojo, if you will. So she goes on to say, and I know there were varying reactions to it. And certainly there were a lot of people that had grown up with the original trilogy who were disappointed by it. I believe she said she was one of them in a different interview. But I actually was very intrigued by why George Lucas had started us at that particular point. Fair enough. I kind of wondered, but what happened to lead up to this? That's kind of where my Star Wars fan brain was like, how did we get here? And why are the Jedi like this? When they are in power, why are they acting this way? And how is it that they're not having the reaction that you would think they would to Anakin's presence and to what Qui-Gon Jinn is saying? That right there is an interesting nugget. Just to pause this quote for a second, just to take a moment here. Why are they reacting that way to Anakin and Qui-Gon? So, does that mean that we're going to see them believe they defeated the Sith? Or is this going to show and why the Jedi don't believe he is what he is? Or is this going to show exactly why he is? I mean, you could really go both ways with it, and both ways are fascinating. So she goes on to say, it's like even the Discovery Darth Maul is kind of met with this like, interesting kind of feeling. So I just kind of think of my brain has always buzzed around that area and wondered what's going on here and what has been going on here. So to maybe, what is Acolyte going to bring to the Star Wars universe may help contextualize Phantom Menace in a better way. A lot of people, I think unfairly, but I get it's an easy dig, like even like as a comedian or something, when there's talking about the Congress in the opening crawl of Phantom Menace, it's not exactly like, the best PR for the era, if you will. And I don't think it matters. I don't think it affects the movie in a bad way personally, but why? Why do it? Why have it that way? And so if she goes and does a really good job with this series, it's going to enhance Phantom Menace, I think. So she goes on to say, it's an interesting question, actually, when you ask it that way. You're right. A lot of people have asked me that. Oh, sorry. What was the question? Okay. So as a queer woman to run a Star Wars series, Headland has been asked a lot about being the first queer woman to run a Star Wars series. So the Wrap asked Headland if the question itself regarding that pressure and honor comes with being the first to hold that title is problematic. when the responsibility comes to the focus to people. Okay, that's a convoluted sentence. I should know. I write them all the time. It is an interesting question, actually, when you ask it that way. You're right. A lot of people have asked me, and I've kind of given different answers to it. But when you phrase it that way, I do wonder why people are asking me that. Like, why aren't you asking Disney that question? Like, when people say, do you feel responsibility? What are you going to do about it? And now that you've been gifted this position, which I feel very grateful for me, all I really feel is gratitude and the pressure that comes with creating anything, period, let alone something that's important as Star Wars. But you're right. There is kind of a vibe of be careful. Like, they hired me. I wonder if we should be asking the artist that question, or should be asking the studios and the corporation those questions, and the networks those questions. And actually, I think that they do get asked them pretty often, but I think that there's more of a responsibility in the realm of hiring, rather. Yeah, I see what she's saying. Sorry, I don't mean to read so much. It is like it's kind of weird because your sexuality does in a way play into your personality, but it's not your personality. Like, it might tell you something about your home life and about where you're coming from, certain angles on how you view empathy in certain lights. But at the same time, it's like, does it matter? I don't actually know the answer to the question either. Like, is it to go back to my Queen analogy from earlier, does it matter that Freddie Mercury was a gay man for the art that he made? If you want to know maybe where the emotionality is coming from at moments, perhaps. At the same time, it kind of doesn't really matter, and it shouldn't. And I don't think she should feel any pressure one way or the other based off of those things, other than the pressure that a creative feels. But that's just my take. And I could understand how people who would want to see, like, a gay or bisexual, lesbian, trans character, whatever, in the series, seeing this is our best opportunity, and if she doesn't do that, how they may feel let down and betrayed by her. So it's a tough spot to be in. I don't know if I would wish that on anybody. But I think what she says is ultimately the right perspective. And that's, for me, my job is to do my job, which is to create and show run and produce a show. And I think that there's an enormous amount of pressure that comes with that, no matter what. It's just very hard. And yeah, so there you have that. And what else does she say? She goes on, what I noticed was that most of the scripts, the samples that I really responded to, they were Star Wars fans, Headless said. Most of the people that I met with, this is for writing gigs, were people that were either really big fans of the franchise, but maybe not as familiar with The Mandalorian, the Clone Wars, Dave Filoni's, Clone Wars show, and hadn't played the video games. And they were people like myself that have watched all Clone Wars and played Fallen Order and played Knights of the Old Republic. And I've done a lot of the RPGs, including Edge of Empire. So I kind of felt like I was very into Star Wars. So I didn't necessarily look for people that were as into Star Wars as I was, as much as was interested in why people are interested in Star Wars. So it wasn't, I sought out people specifically who had not. It was more that I was looking for people who I responded to their work anyway. And then I was like, what's your way into Star Wars? What are the parts of it that you find most interesting? And everybody had a different answer. See, I know that I'm going to get like a bunch of downvotes on this video because it was her. Like on the last one, I don't think the episode was bad, but it got a bunch of downvotes from people, and somebody like called her cancer. And I'm just like, why? I don't understand. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. This methodology that she is laying out here sounds really freaking solid to me. And unless you hate Rogue One, Gary Whitta wasn't a fan of the prequels. There were all these message board posts put around about him, dogging on it and encouraging bootlegging it and stuff. And I think he could kind of be an asshole sometimes, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I think he did a good job on Rogue One. So I'll take it, And these perspectives, and I'm not talking about like queer perspective. I'm talking about perspectives on why you love Star Wars. Those are all important. And I think when you bring in somebody who does satisfy their own love of Star Wars in their work, a certain demographic of people are going to be pleased with that too. And if it connects overall, great. Because that's what you kind of have like with Filoni and Favreau on Mandalorian. You know, I love their work. Don't get me wrong, but it's very bro-y. It's like, dudes, like let's make like, I like Predator. Rambo's cool, and you can't deny that. I mean, Arnold's like sidekick from Predator. I don't know if sidekick is the word, but is in Mandalorian. Homeboy from Bad Batch is literally Rambo, you know, and he's making very dude centric and I maybe that's not the right way to put it, but it's just straight up action movie referential men movies from the 80s. Maybe women love them now. I don't know. But that's what they would have been defined as when they were released. So, and it connected and it did well. And so there you go. Like that's my take. I think whenever anybody is like you know, like these real like dudes that are like you know, wool Mandalorian types or whatever, I think that those like people should be satiated. I think that there should be Star Wars that satisfies that level of I'm an action person. And then I also think on the other hand, if they want to make a show about the handmaidens of Padme, there's room for that too. And in fact, I would take, you know, a British melodrama about Padme's handmaidens. I'd watch that. It would be kind of ridiculous, but why not, right? So anyways, she goes on to say that you want to have people that respect the source material, who absolutely know what you're talking about. But at the same time, I think it's important that you have some voices who are approaching it a little bit more of the kind of way George Lucas approached Episode 4. Right? When he wrote A New Hope, he was not approaching it like, well, in Star Wars, there's this thing. He talked over and over again about his kind of inspiration for that film being from tone poems or from a school of cinema that was more about visual representation of feelings. And of course, the monomyth was not from a place of, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of an IP. Once again, like, this person is rocking it. I mean, I think that if they are dead on, this is exactly the person that I would hire to make this show if I was in charge of it, based off of these methods. Because that, like, for instance, you know, like, there are things in Star Wars that work in certain ways better than in other ways. Like, you know, in A New Hope, I did a video about it, and you can find it on the channel, and it's about exactly how it worked, where there's this, like, method where you kind of show, don't tell. And, like, so, like, when Luke's family is killed, it's more emotional for Luke to look very sad, defeated, and destroyed while emotional music plays than him to go, Uncle Owen, Auntie Beru, no! You know? Kind of funny when you consider that Revenge of the Sith has the no, but it is Frankenstein. What do you want? But, yeah, so you know, I think her perspective is very on. She says, you know, Jon Favreau did this perfectly with the Mandalorian, and I like that too. I know that you're going to have sort of like the people who want to make fan fiction around creatives. There's a Lucasfilm Civil War. It's the most funny thing I always hear. And right here, you have, you know, a lesbian who's saying what Filoni and Favreau did is fucking awesome and it worked. And seeing that. And whereas it's going to be assumed and presented that she's going to take it in a completely different way. I don't know which way she's going to take it, but she seems to know what works. And the methodology seems strong. It doesn't seem as bad as like, well, they had their hands tied and that's why they made something good. It seems a lot deeper than that, I think. So, hey, Santa. Thank you, Santa. I appreciate it. Santa, we need to discuss when you're going to come on, too. Because I let that kind of slide. I did not mean to, by the way. Because I want Star Wars Santa on this show. And I had my little childrinos with me this week. And so I haven't had much time to myself beyond doing this show. So she got the right perspective for Star Wars. Super exciting. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And I feel like the show Acolyte is going to be the most like prequel-esque thing that we've gotten. And I want to see what happens when somebody without George Lucas's eccentricities makes a prequel era product or show like in that way. You know what I'm saying? Really late to the show today, says Santa. Had to get here in time to join before it ended today. Move my membership from recommend to order. Oh, well, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. And I appreciate anybody who can support the show. And when you can support the show, it is much appreciated. Never required. And I know at times, there's times when people can support, times when they can't. Completely get it. And but it's rad when I have support to do this. Because one of my plans for the show as time moves on is right now I'm just using the webcam on my computer. And I have been using, I have a GoPro 8, and it's fickle. It will lag up, but I don't know if it's the service, if it's StreamYard or if it's the camera, but I will test it and it'll work great. And then when it comes time to film the show, it starts doing it. I'm just throwing my hands up and I go over to my crappy webcam on this computer. So one of the things I want to do is upgrade the camera. So that way you can see my stupid face in all of its glory, all of its splendor. So, yeah. But I think that might kind of wrap the show up today, unless anybody has any last questions that they were typing out before we hit the end of that article. But I think it's interesting that we're going to have the prequels really represented in a strange way. We're kind of going pre-prequel, but I think it's going to enhance it. I think there's every indication that they are setting up the Phantom Menace. They're setting up the climate for that whole system. Is it going to be a political show, or is it going to completely just be on the magic side? That's what I wonder about, you know? So, Karen says, Obi-Wan Kenobi series, any ideas or teaser trailer or poster releases? I don't actually know what they're doing for the poster, if they're doing anything at the moment. When they aren't theatrically based things, they don't have to print them up, and they like literally have until like the very end to start releasing it on Twitter as like social media promotion. Makes it a lot harder to kind of know what's up there. I would love if these shows had theatrical posters for everyone, though, and then those posters down the road can be used for the box set, you know. That's what I would prefer. I would also prefer that they started going back to making traditional movie posters, for as much as they will at times talk about how traditional they are making these Star Wars shows or films like the sequel trilogy. You know, I liked the Last Jedi poster. I thought that was a unique, memorable poster. The other two, not so much. I don't really love any of the other posters. And Kenobi was going to be a film. We were going to get a Kenobi poster. It would be cool if that was one of the things that was sort of like honored on that front. In terms of trailer stuff, for the record, I haven't heard very much on when we're going to hear trailers for the new shows. One kind of thing that was suggested to me before that is probably sort of true, is that we're going to have those things kind of bookending the last release. So I'm not saying I expect there to be a Kenobi trailer at the end of Boba, but like tacked on, but we didn't get a Boba trailer up front or an announcement kind of thing because they included it in the bookend of Mando. So I expect that we're going to see the Boba Fett trailer first, because Boba Fett is coming out first. It'll be here in December if everything goes to plan. And so I would imagine Kenobi will somehow play into the coattails of that hype if it can ride them. Not that it needs it, but I mean, synergy and, if everybody who's watching Boba knows that Kenobi's coming, it makes the most sense. So I would imagine during the release of Boba is when we would see our first true good looks at Kenobi. That would make the most sense. But I also don't expect them to promote Kenobi before they've started promoting Boba, because that kind of wouldn't make sense. You don't want people getting confused about what the release schedule is and stuff. But the thing I can say is, man, there's going to be a lot coming in this next year. There's going to be a lot to be excited for, between all of these shows that are just going to be kind of like hitting one after the other. And the next 2 years is just going to bring so much solid Star Wars content. And I haven't watched any of the Mandalorian season 2 recently, and so I kind of want to go back and rewatch that show just because I haven't watched it in a while. Probably start talking about it a lot when I do, just so you know. Heads up. Isn't Cassian coming out before Kenobi? So Kenobi promotion should be at the end of Cassian. Yeah, Josh, you're probably right, but it's not really clear what's up there. Like, at one point, like, Cassian got extended filming for some reason, and and with the way that the productions have gone parallel, I really think it could truly go either way still. I'm not, that's what I think, not what I know. That's what I think. And I would not, there's so much assumption and there's so much implication in their announcements in the past that haven't been clear. And until we have firm release dates, I'm kind of going with it could go either way. And they may look at what they have and decide what's the better rollout. Because I think at some point they're going to have multiple shows sort of in various stages of being finished. And so Kenobi might be the better bet to roll into first. Might be the more surefire win that would make people for sure tune into Cassian. At the same time, sandwiching Cassian in between two wins, Boba and Kenobi, also, could be good. It might be a rollout like this. Character-focused show, concept-focused show. Character-focused show, maybe there's a pattern. Probably not, but if they went that way, it would be like Cassian, it would be like something like Acolyte, or Kenobi, Acolyte, and then Ahsoka. Like they could kind of ping pong back on that kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's totally possible. I don't know though. I don't know if they even have everything cemented down totally yet. So Dorco, hey Dorco, how's it going? Dorco asks, what do you think the plan is at Disney with Ford's injury? Are they changing anything in the film to compensate? I would think that I would imagine they have to. I think but I don't think it's going to be like story stuff. I think it's going to be how it's shot. What are the methods of filming that scene? And complete conjecture on my part, but when you have that, then movies become very planned out. It doesn't leave much room for Ford to improvise something if it's going to be CGI now and stuff like that. So I think that it maybe you could lose something in that way, but who knows? And I like that Wolverine film that Mangold made. Like that was, the most actiony movie maybe. Ford versus Ferrari is good, very good, actually very good. And so I'm super excited to see what he does. And I have faith in him. And I'm getting a good, I'm getting a good vibe from the production though overall. Don't have any big scoops to drop, but I talked to a friend or two who's working on it, and they are not telling me to not be excited. That's usually a good sign. Mark Hamilton says KRT said Ahsoka was the live-action version of what the animated Rebels series was going to be, the search for Ezra. Does that track with what you know? I mean, it's... I don't know. I mean, it definitely has. I mean, the very announcement has Ahsoka with that constellation of stars, right? And there, I don't know who said what now. I don't remember. So no slights on anyone. Not second guessing anyone. If anybody said what they said, I assume that they have reason to say it. But I was told very early on that like a Rebels sequel cartoon was not happening when that was a rumor, and so I don't know. I don't know what you make of that. It's really hard for me to analyze someone else's scoop and someone else's story when I don't really know anything about it or why they came to their conclusions, and how solid that yet they were, and stuff like that. So don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and don't want to pick on anybody or start any fights or any of that jazz. So I'm just going to stick to like what I know. And the one thing that only thing I know, and it's obvious now, was that there wasn't a real Rebels like sequel. You know, are those plot lines picked up in it? It seems to be the case though. At the same time, to what degree? You know, for all we know, the whole season is Ahsoka going around Kill Bill style like she was in Mando. And then at the very end, it's like, oh, here's the portal, and she steps through it. The end, and then season 2 we'll get that. But I don't know. And I heard people came to me and asked me like, hey, is this person playing Ezra? I don't remember their name now, but I ran it by a source who I was texting with at that moment, and they just laughed and were like, no. And so we'll see. It'll be exciting though. Like it's weird, man. It's like I love knowing everything because I'm nosy. At the same time, it's kind of fun when I don't, and when we don't, and we can be like, what's it going to be? Because when we learn anything, it's going to be like, whoa, you know, mind blown. But as I always say, that doesn't make a movie or a show good. That doesn't make it hold very much water beyond those first moments. You know, after that buzz wears away, and then all you have is what you're left with, and that's the story, that's the work. And while PR might think that they're the end-all, be-all of marketing whizzes and stuff like that, movies settle the way that they settle based on their own merits. Like, I think the marketing and the blitz for Phantom Menace and the prequels was mishandled largely, and I don't think it helped the film. At the end of the day, the movies have now settled on their own merits. So Karen says Willow filming as well. Tons of Disney Plus shows coming. Yeah, I'm so excited for like Willow. If you guys have never seen Willow, it's literally a fantasy Star Wars movie, you know, and its music is not John Williams, but it is just as good. Is it James Horner who does that one? It's such a good theme, and when I hear that like theme, I'm not gonna lie, you know, I saw grown men crying when Han Solo came on the Millennium Falcon for The Force Awakens in that first trailer. I'm not knocking it. My reaction is so inward when that kind of stuff happens. But man, I don't know. If I hear that Willow theme, that might get me. Might. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll be honest. I will be completely honest. So, Ahsoka as a bride would rule. Yeah, I mean, and I kind of felt like they were almost hinting at that. And I think that they could play with this idea that she's not really a Jedi. You know? She is a Jedi, but not... She's her own thing. And maybe she'll become one with Luke and Grogu in the end. I mean, that relationship has been formed. That connection is now there on screen. Yeah, the Willow theme is maybe the best non-Star Wars, non-Indiana Jones, non-Back to the Future theme of all time. And that says a lot. You know what I mean? It really truly does. I mean, what else can you ask for, you know? Dorco says, do you think Lucasfilm is going to be creating more projects outside Star Wars anytime soon, like Willow and Indy? Anything else they could revisit or recreate? You know, there was that book. I don't know what happened to that production. Something Bones? Can't remember what it was called. Not sure if that got shelved with the pandemic. Not Yeah, but that was one of the original things that they were thinking about doing. Um, wouldn't mind seeing that. I know people like the. I think it's based on a book that people enjoy, so we'll have to see how that goes. At the same time, I'm kind of the mindset of, I don't know, why couldn't Disney just do it? You know, why use Lucasfilm to? It would be cool to see them branch out, but do we really need them to branch out if it essentially just becomes a Disney movie made under the Lucasfilm moniker? And a film that, or a series that might hurt Lucasfilm's overall bottom line, and I would rather that stuff be going into Lucasfilm properties that we already love, and Disney just to make original movies. I mean, but who knows? Maybe I'll see that show and it'll be fantastic, and I will. I don't have any point of reference to like love it or whatever. But Willow and Indy, like, I'm hoping this starts with the Willow universe, if you will. Like, Willow was mishandled as well. Like, upon its release, it was sold as from the makers of Star Wars and Cocoon. Like, at that, I know Cocoon sounds like what now, but Cocoon was huge at that time, and nothing could live up to Star Wars. Star Wars can't live up to Star Wars. What a misstep, in my opinion. And so Willow didn't get the love that it should have gotten. And if they had made Willow sequels, I think that it would be huge. I think it would have grown so big over time. But this is the chance now. Warwick's not too old. We got a lot of Warwick Davis left in us, I think. I hope. And it would just be so great. It would be so good to have that fantasy series really connect. So I'm rooting for them. I believe in John Kasdan. John Kasdan, I think his work on Solo was fantastic. I heard his work on the Indy script was great too. It just wasn't what they wanted to make. But I think he has what it takes. So I am very confident in it. I'm hoping for the best. Can't wait for Willow. I hope Val Kilmer is back. Yeah, like, the whole thing is, he had some throat problems. He couldn't speak for a while, and I think medications were changing his appearance and stuff like that because of it. So I hope so too. Mad Mardigan was probably, as a kid, my favorite character in Willow. I used to make my cousin Steven be Willow, and I would be Mad Mardigan. When I was a kid, I had a picture of Sorsha in her white nightgown from the snow. I got it like in a Willow poster book made by Starlog, maybe. And I remember my dad walking in my room and he'd look and he'd go, nice. Karen says, Rangers of the New Republic and Children of Blood. Yes, Children of Blood. Okay, so Children of Blood and Bone ain't happening for now. See, I don't know anything about that. I heard that Rangers of the New Republic is happening. I heard that it was never even written, that Favreau was going to be the writer or the head writer, and they never even got to it. And so I think that I'm guessing, conjecture on my part, but when they heard it wasn't in active development, because it wasn't being written at this moment, and it more debunks stuff like they were doing this, they were changing that, it was about this. I don't know if I believe that, but I'm also not willing to die on a hill and say Rangers of the New Republic is coming out, everybody. Wait for it. Like, I don't want to tell anybody that either, because who knows what's going to get canceled. Until it is filming, it's on the chopping block. That is just the reality of the industry. Howard the Duck reboot, baby. Yeah. I know. Wouldn't it be, they won't obviously do it, but wouldn't it have been interesting if Lucasfilm had done their Marvel movie with Howard? If they had rebooted Howard and it would have played into that? Like, I kind of, and Monobite, who just showed up, would probably be able to weigh in on that. Or Ant-Man too. I mean, you are Ant-Man. So, but with all of that, at play, that could have been a fun kind of like interaction between them. At the same time, like the Howard the Duck kind of thing was always a bit weird. It was always like an investment that didn't pay off, and not as big of a creative endeavor with Lucas as you would think. And that could just be him disowning it, but it didn't seem like that was the case. Strangely, as a kid, the song was huge. If you lived out in Los Angeles, Power 106 played Howard the Duck constantly. I probably have heard the Howard the Duck song on Power 106 more than it was ever shown in theaters. The Willow book sequels weren't great. Yeah, you're right, dude. They weren't. I read them like twice, and I don't remember them. And like Willow becomes more like a cataclysm happens. All the characters you love are killed. Elora Danan grows up to be a brat, but it's not fun. And Willow becomes Thorn, and then they're not calling him Willow anymore. And you hit a point where you're just like, I feel like I'm reading some fantasy novel that's just simply being called the sequel to Willow. You know, it didn't have any of the spirit of those films. I think it's like almost like a George Lucas's sequel trilogy idea. I had ideas for the Willow sequel. These things would have happened. Here, was it Chris something? What was his name? No recall on names today, but they were gonna think it that way. Didn't, and then you just have these books, and I don't think there was a lot of like heart in them, personally. They can bring back Rangers with Dash Rendar. Dude, you know, I would love to see Dash reconfigured and remade, you know? And my Dash, if I made him, would be more like the original Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica, who was sort of an amalgamation of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker together in that way. And I would take it in that direction. And I would love to see, like, you know, Kyle Katarn and Dash Rendar and those video game characters like really kind of like consolidated and made into like strong characters that have like a backstory that like spawned out of weird places, but it would be fun. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like the Dave Filoni names or the Jon Favreau names in The Mandalorian. You know, I don't think they're good. I don't think they're damaging. Din Djarin is not the best name for a hero. God, it's just not. It's also kind of a who cares in a world where there's Figure Dion and the modal nodes or whatever, you know. It's you don't want to take it too seriously. But like Dash Rendar is kind of better. It still sucks, but it sucks good. Do you know Sebastian Stan has ever been approached for Luke by Lucasfilm, the dream replacement for Mark Hamill? I don't know if they've actually done it, but man, I wouldn't be surprised, you know? I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if they talked, if there's been any kind of touching base about it. And you have to think that there's Luke Skywalker pitches being made all the time by creatives. So at some point when one of them is really good and they pick that up, I have a feeling it'll be Sebastian. They would be idiots to not use him. Team, hey dude, how's it going, man? Great to have you back, Jason Hart. Yeah, dude, thanks, man. I always enjoy reading your Twitter posts and following you on the twitter.com machine. So thank you. Josh says, speaking of old EU characters like Dash Rendar, I don't understand why they haven't done anything with Mara Jade. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of things about Mara, right? Like, a part of it's going to have to be kind of cut off, and that's the marriage to Luke. It can't culminate in that probably. But can it become a Batman and Catwoman? And man, if you've been following that on Twitter, I gotta say, I think Luke Skywalker better be good at what heroes don't do, because seems like he's gonna have to be if he's gonna want to have a girlfriend like Mara Jade. Yeah, all joking aside, I think that Lucas's perspective was always Luke didn't get married. So, and then we see where Luke ends up and how he ends up there. So you might have to make it a tragic story. You might have to have Luke at one point not going through with what's going to happen, and then Mara dies, or they both do the right thing and decide that they're not going to follow a romance. Maybe. Or Maybe they take it super deep and dark. They do get married. They do have the temple together, and Kylo Ren kills his aunt. But that would be a weird thing to not talk about in the sequel trilogy, wouldn't it? That said, the idea of there being this hand of Palpatine with this intent on killing Luke Skywalker, that's a great story. But it would also require a Luke Skywalker story, right? Like, Mara is so intertwined with Luke, you really can't separate them. But I also think that it not rushing into bringing her back has been smart. She, in some ways, closes certain doors unless you reconfigure her into the current timeline. I think that they could do it. I think they should do it. I think that they will do it. But I don't know anything about if they are. Was that Dash's ship the Outrider in Rebels? Was there a cameo of it, or the ship that Hera has? So the ship that Hera has is the Ghost, is not it. But I don't think that's what you're asking. But it is in the special edition of A New Hope, you see it flying out of Mos Eisley. Chandler says, do you think Obi-Wan could use Anakin's saber at all in Kenobi? Did we talk about this already? Can't remember. Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible if he has it on him. Like, if the story was going to be he's taking the saber to Uncle Owen when action happens and kicks off the adventure, and he has both, totally could, right? At the same time, if he's in his house at all, will they pick it up and look at it? Maybe. Brew and Owen are in it, though. So, therefore, Luke's probably in it, too. You never know, though, right? Monobite says, Mara dies when Ben burns the academy. Yeah, I mean, if they're married, if it's a romance, and they don't just decide to become friends and do this Jedi Order together, then, you have, I think, a way out. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that you can't have the romance before choosing duty over personal passions, but if it's his wife, if they're married, and your nephew kills her, and then you just never bring it up during your conflicts. Kind of weird. George hated Mara. Probably means Dave won't go there out of respect. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, and I heard things that I don't actually know if they were credible, though. And I don't have them anymore to remember what those people said to know if it was credible. But, there were stories like Children of the Force in the Clone Wars, where Palpatine was abducting children to make into what we can now assume was the Inquisitor program. Also seemed to line up with the idea of a Mara Jade kind of character, though. So make of that what you will, but I don't know if I really believe there was any true connection there. Ben killing Mara is the perfect catalyst for Luke going hermit and shutting off the Force in case he goes full dark side in revenge. Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You're not wrong in that way. But it still will feel like a huge gaping hole to me if, when they talk, it never comes up. I don't know, Ooh, this is a hard question, Dorco. What's your favorite Lucasfilm project that isn't Star Wars, Indy, or Willow? Well, okay, wait. Okay, I thought you were going to say that isn't Star Wars. Indy or Willow would be hard to pick. I mean, I hate to say it, but I would probably see Willow right now if I had to see one of the two. But what other projects have there been? I mean, Radioland Murders was okay. There was Young Indy, Radioland Murders, and then Maniac Mansion, the TV show. I will say Maniac Mansion, the video game on Nintendo, was probably my favorite actual Lucasfilm game or LucasArts game that really holds up. The Maniac Mansion television show that was on the Family Channel in the 90s was a very hard watch, but I watched it because I was in the Lucasfilm cult. Monobite, George really had something for Darth Talon. Put her in the Maul game. She was in early versions of 7. How long until she enters canon? Yeah, right? Was Darth Talon heavily sexualized? Because I'm not completely that familiar. Like I know who Darth Talon is, but it makes me wonder if she was, and if that plays into things, if that would change like the design. Because you look at certain things, like even in that, when I rewatched Clone Wars, the episode with Cutler Quain and Sue, like Sue is pretty sexualized in that episode. And then when you see her in the new episodes of Bad Batch, they really toned it down. And so there's certain elements where George was just like, yeah, blue tentacle ladies, red tentacle ladies, all right. What I'm trying to say is George Lucas probably watches a very certain kind of you-know-what. Mara would have had been an interesting choice for Luke to send Rey to in Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, that would have been a huge whoa. Oh, yeah. Okay, the Outrider ship was in the Rebel episode called Iron Squadron, but I think it's just another Outrider, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if they ever confirmed it. I loosely remember that now, but yeah, I would love for them to play with that concept. Tucker, kind of Labyrinth. Yeah, as a kid, Labyrinth was the other Lucasfilm project to me, because it was sold to me as George Lucas and Jim Henson are bringing you this, you know, and definitely Labyrinth, if it counts. If it counts, yes, film American Graffiti. See, American Graffiti is a really great movie, you know, and I don't think you get Pulp Fiction without American Graffiti. Those multiple stories going at the same time and stuff like that. So I don't knock its importance. At the same time, not my nostalgia. Good film. Not a favorite film, but I don't dislike it. But I'm still gonna go with Labyrinth if it counts. She was in TFA concept art, yeah, and also what wasn't, right? Originally, Talon was who seduced Ben to the dark side, which is why she was in the concept art. Got it. Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen Palpatine's, or felt or got a sense of the turmoil that Palpatine put Ben through via Snoke, via being in his head and every voice he's ever heard. It could have been corny if not handled right, but having that would have helped me empathize with Ben a little bit more. Essentially, the devil made me do it. And the way it was handled was revealing, but it wasn't showing. It was telling, but it wasn't showing. And that is another critique I have of 9. But, I mean, I'm going to have to do an episode where I talk about everything I love about 9, because I keep dogging on 9, because these points of contention that we talk about are kind of always linked to it. But so when nothing is going on and it's really slow and I need a concept for one of these shows, I think I'm going to do what I love about 9, and I'll try to give you a heads up, and you guys could tell me what you love about 9 too. And we'll definitely hold like the first half of the show just to what we love about 9. Or we could even do that about any of them if you guys want to. I don't want to have forced positivity. I don't want to be inauthentic, but I do love it. I just have problems with it. If it was one of my children, it would not be my favorite child. Which is messed up to say. But okay, guys, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark, so I am going to end this stream here, and hopefully everyone had a good time. If you want to support the show like my homie James here has, you could become a channel member. Would appreciate it a lot. Make sure you share the show with your friends, and anybody who you would think would be fun to hang out in the chat who could make it, let me know. Also, if you're a channel member, I will extra take into times when we could do some alternate times here and there, so that way you guys could be in live if you can't make it and you wish to be. There's like a message board that it unlocks for channel members, and feel free to let me know your thoughts there. and feel free for channel members to have any conversation there, and would be happy to talk about Star Wars with you there outside of the confines of the crap holes that are social media and other ways. We can have our own little kind of nice, secure society. But you know what I'm saying. So anyways, thank you guys, everyone. Oh, what do you think of the Dark Crystal series? Loved it. Watched it too fast. I need to watch it again. And I am beyond confused that it was canceled too. And there were rumors about Labyrinth series, the Dream Show. Beloved Labyrinth series, my only trepidation is that David Bowie made that. Who else has the charisma and the power of David Bowie? I see Queen every time they put in a new lead singer. Love seeing Queen, but nobody comes close to Freddie Mercury. And I don't know if you could replace David Bowie, but it is a rad world. It is a magical world, and there's a lot that could be done there. So I would totally love a Labyrinth series. And maybe Willow, if it connects, will be the impetus of that. Maybe Hendon, the Henson Company, and Lucasfilm should start talking again, and maybe consider doing that. Saul Sketchcraft did it. Lady Gaga. If Lady Gaga was in a Labyrinth sequel, if she's Jareth's daughter, mother, sister, whatever, I'm in. That could work. I would go there. I would watch that. So yeah, you definitely. I mean, Beyonce. I mean, little Nas. You know, but I don't. I mean. It's kind of funny because it also depends on who's writing the music too. Are they originals? Is it going to be a musical still? Stuff like that. I would kind of want it to be. But anyways, thanks guys, girls, everyone in between, however you identify. Appreciate having you here. Appreciate this discussion today. And I hope everybody has a good Wednesday. And I'll see you guys tomorrow and probably around the same time. But if you have any questions, send them in. Think about them. And Jeff says Tilda. I don't know much about Tilda, but I will look into that, and we will bring it back up on the show because I like that. All right, see you guys. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Bye.